Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolbarger. This is the week of December 7th, and let me wish you a happy holidays, whether it's Hanukkah or whether it's Christmas season. It's an amazing time of year, and hopefully it's a time of year that gets us thinking. And that's what these Middle East updates are really all about, just to sort of get us thinking, get us praying, get us back to the Bible, understanding what the Bible says about the events that are not just past. Obviously they're present, but what's about ready to take place. So that's what this is all about. Let me encourage you to invite your friends to be a part of our fellowship. It's free. If you go to Holy Ground Explorations, you can just click on the KFIR button. KFIR means Young Lions. And you get a daily devotional, you get a weekly prayer list, and you get this YouTube link for a Middle East update. So again, let's jump right into this week. I should mention, by going to the website, you also can access the free PDF PowerPoint, which goes along with this presentation and gives you sort of pictures, and many times, like I'm not sure I'll get to talk about the last slide that you'll find on that PDF, which really is just sort of a snapshot of Hanukkah. So go there again, holygroundexplorations.com. Well, headlines for this week. What just took place in San Bernardino. Think about it for a moment. This couple, they left a 6-month-old baby behind to commit the kind of slaughter that was likely to result in their own death. It's not something that most parents outside of a mental institution or a radical mosque of the Palestinian Authority could understand. It took quite a while, but after much delay, President Barack Obama conceded, it was on Saturday, that this week's deadly California shootings that killed 14 people, wounded another 21, were an act of terror that were carried out by terrorists who were, quote, as he would put it, possibly radicalized. Again, whether it be Israel, whether it be France, we are now seeing this on our own shores. Make no mistake about it, we're in a war. It is radical Islam versus our Judeo-Christian values. And what does the world do? Indeed, as the blood in the streets of Paris barely had a chance to dry, the world leaders convened there for a week. And what was the topic? How to battle ISIS, how to deal with terrorism? No, it was for a climate change conference. As Iran races towards nuclear weapons and jihadists gain strength wherever they hang their hats, it's global warming, I should say, rather than global jihad that is on top of the agenda. And then Palestinian Authority, this blew my mind. This just came out that said the PA officials and media are not only condoning but also encouraging terrorism against Israelis. However, they recommend doing so at the right place and at the right time in order not to be likened or connected with the Islamic State. Or by that how the international community might view it. In other words, it's okay to kill Israelis, but you have to do it at the right time in the right place. Every family, this is under the category of did you know? Did you know that every family of a Palestinian Authority terrorist who was killed receives from Abu Mazen or Muhammad Abbas. This is the head of the PA. He receives the family receives 14 to 15,000 shekels a month. And where does the PA get this money to give? They get it from Israel. The money that is taxed, it's transferred to the PA, comes from these taxes that Israelis pay. And there's a groundswell, obviously, that's saying, let's stop transferring these funds because we're rewarding those that are murdering. We're rewarding the terrorists. So, and then kind of last under the headline section, the Swedes are no friend of Israelis, obviously, and in the midst of everything that's going on, the Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Löfven further strained his country's relationship with Israel on Monday, saying that he doesn't consider the stabbing attacks in Israel to constitute terrorism. His quote, "No, it is not classified as terrorism," he said in an interview to Swedish news agencies. Quote, "There is an international classification regarding what constitutes or what does not constitute terror, and as far as I know, the knife attacks on Israel, they don't fit under this category. We don't define that as terror." Think about it. People walking in the streets, coming up behind people, slashing their throats, stabbing their necks or whatever. Little kids running through, teenagers looking for elderly people to stab. No, that's not terrorism. Then what is? Now, in the midst of all this, with all the political agendas that are going on in the States, it's obvious that Obama is completely overwhelmed by what to say and what to do concerning these terrorist attacks. I should have mentioned this earlier, most all of our information that we give you in these Middle East reports come from news agencies, newsletters, and friends from Israel. So in a news journal, we read, though he vows that the U.S. will defeat the new terror threat, President Barack Obama's speech after the San Bernardino's attacks simply offered no new policy solutions. And this has sort of raised the ire of Republicans. The Republican candidates are slamming Obama's response to the attack as saying he has no strategy and there is no leadership in place. In a rare Oval Office address, Obama vowed that the U.S. would overcome this new phase of terror that seeks to poison the minds of people around the world, as he sought to reassure Americans that have been shaken by the recent attacks in both Paris and California. Still, despite all of that, he announced no significant shift in U.S. strategy, no new policy prescriptions for defeating the Islamic State group. His remarks, again, as fueling the fires. I know Trump has gone way out there in terms of just recently, I think last night, stating that we should refuse any immigrants whatsoever that are Islamic or Muslim at this time. So this is fueling a fire once again, going back to what I said in the very beginning. We need to know what our Bibles are saying. We need to understand the war that we're facing that's we're in the midst of it, and it's knocking at the door. It's not going to go away. It's going to explode. Now, what's going on with the Palestinian Authority? Last week, as you know, one of those that are part of the police of the PA opened fire at a northern checkpoint in Jerusalem. And this is really the beginning of what many consider to be the collapse of the PA. It's really an Israeli nightmare. What exactly will it look like if the PA disintegrates? Will ISIS replace them? Will Hamas replace them? At the start, It'll probably happen the way things happened on Thursday. Maybe it'll be an isolated incident with a Palestinian police officer or two who decide to attack Israeli targets. They'll cause many Israeli casualties. The reaction from there, there'll be an Israeli response that follows. And then there'll be a response on the other side, and this thing will totally begin to completely unravel because there's no leadership at the top whatsoever. And right when you're quick to say, well, let it come, what's the big deal? The big deal is what's going to replace that vacuum. Well, the White House is welcoming now the enemies of Israel. President Barack Obama is introducing an anti-Zionist values into the White House. He's allowed J Street, he's allowed the group Breaking the Silence, and next in line now is the Arab Knesset member Aman Adah. This is a MK, member of the Knesset from the Arab factions, who refuses to condemn Arab terror. He blames the stabbings on Israel. Even more absurd than that, he claims to be a Christian, but the persecution and the slaughter of Christians in the Muslim world has not stopped him from embracing his fellow Muslim MKs who call the Israeli government Nazis and openly campaign for the end of Israel as a Jewish state. And so Obama is now welcoming him into the White House. A couple more things before we close today, sort of the quote of the week. This is what Netanyahu told Kerry before their recent meeting. Listen carefully. There can be no peace when we have an onslaught of terror, not here or not anywhere else in the world, which is experiencing this same assault by militant Islamists and the forces of terror. Israel is fighting these forces every hour of the day. We are fighting them directly against the terrorists themselves. We're fighting also against the sources of incitement. And we believe that the entire international community should support our efforts. It's not only our battle, it's everyone's battle. It's the battle of civilization versus barbarianism. Well said. It's what we're facing. And so that will be our quote of the week. Hopefully you have the PDF in front of you, because this sort of incitement that we talk about, check out the pictures here in the port of Haifa. It was discovered these containers were open. They look like cute little dolls, right? Christmas presents. The Palestinian leadership stops at nothing when it comes to incitement, inciting against Israel and Israelis even utilizing child's play. The Palestinian leadership's been engaged in all means of incitement against Israelis, including through children TV shows and sports events, and Israeli custom officers have learned of yet a new way. Custom officers working in the port of Haifa last Tuesday discovered thousands of children's dolls which are intended to be a means of inciting children to hate Israelis and to use violence. Some 4,000 of these masked figures that you can see. They're a Palestinian rioter that are holding stuffed rocks. They were caught en route from the United Arab Emirates to the Palestinian Authority, apparently for distribution among children that are so easily impressionable. The dolls have a Palestinian flag, and they also have writing that says Jerusalem is ours, while others have Jerusalem as a centerpiece, say, here we come, and that's written on the scarves of these dolls. I didn't have time to go through Palestinian Media Watch. It's something you should click on to and check out for yourself. It's horrifying. It is rated R, but you need to look at it and see on the websites not only children with knives reciting stab, 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 but you also see on websites, Islamic websites, how to, where to stab, how to slit an Israeli's throat, etc., etc. And so, and it starts at this age. It starts with a little doll. Here we're coming. It's got a rock in its hand, or whatever. That's the world in which we're living, and it's time for believers like you and I to take a stand. Now, I'll say this. We're not only praying for Israelis. We're praying specifically for Israelis, obviously, that they're going to come to know Yeshua as their Messiah. But we're going to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. But we'll continue to pray that Muslim eyes would be open to receive Jesus as well, because this is fueled by demonic activities, and prayer is the weapon of choice when it comes to uprooting these types of strongholds. So remember, believer, remember, Christian, remember to pray. Take a look at the origins of Hanukkah. We're in the midst of it right now. We know it's also known as the Feast of Dedication. We know that Jesus was in Jerusalem during Hanukkah itself, and it's the miracle of, in a sense, the rededication of the temple. Interesting that the temple site today is still ground zero. Make no mistake about it. Crosshairs, Temple Mount in this day. Because as the prophets have warned, in the end, Jerusalem shall be a cup of trembling. So with that, greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. So seize the moment and let's be devoted to prayer. God bless you. This is Dan, KFIR Middle East Update from San Diego, California.